That right there is awesome splash page.
A new life begins!
All right, it is Sunday night. We are here to talk about some comics and just, things within the comic industry. So we're going to kick this off. And Jay, you had some topic on the November solicitations from DC.
Yeah, they came out with them, and over the week they announced 4 new titles, I think. There's new Batgirl ongoing. It's just called Batgirl. It's important. The other ones have some weird title. There's new Black Lightning mini. The Question is getting an ongoing. It's
Okay.
called All Along the Watchtower. Mind you, this is an ongoing, not a mini.
All right. But that means Marvel can't be far behind.
DC usually releases them like 3 weeks into the month. Marvel usually waits till the final month.
The final week of the
week.
month. Okay.
And then I told you there's the Black Canary book. It's Best of the Best is what it's called. It's done by Tom King and whoever did the artwork for Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So I'm sure she will totally be written in character and not.
No, if there's continuity to be had, she is not going to be written within that continuity. So
I found an image on Twitter where somebody was like, Tom King bingo card.
Yeah, I remember looking at that when we were at Into Juice, picking up some stuff on our way back from the hall. So one of the things I did pick up at the hall was a Mighty Marvel Masterworks, which is Marvel's small print, little book, a little different size.
They're a little bigger.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to do was pick that up so that I could do a comparison between the two from Marvel and DC, and give a comparison review of sorts on what they are, not necessarily what's inside of them. I picked up the Thor War of the Gods,
which is the 3rd volume.
Yeah, it's the 3rd volume.
I don't know if Marvel is still doing them. Marvel's very weird with their trades. They'll do a imprint for something, do it for like 3-4 trades, and then not do it.
Yeah, they need to figure something out. Hopefully DC will keep these up. I still really like the format, the size.
I'm sure they will. I just don't know if I'm kind of worried half their lineup is just going to end up being Batman books.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I do know that DC has put a post out there asking what people want to see printed in this format. So let's, as long as people will reply to it and just kind of,
as long as they continue to sell well.
Yeah,
I'm sure Doomsday Clock is probably going to get one.
I could see that, and that would be kind of fun. I mean, that I think that series would translate pretty well in that format. We are moving into the reviews of last week's anticipated comics. Last episode, Jay and I had pointed out what we were looking forward to coming off of this week's pool. I'm going to start with Jay. So your anticipated was Transformers number 11. I know we had kind of talked about the series as a whole. I did pick up the first trade, so I can get into understanding the series a little bit more. I really enjoyed the first issue, so I'm looking forward to get through the trade. But I'm reading another one right now, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later in this episode. We have another topic. Go ahead with your review of Transformers number 11.
I mean, it's fantastic as always. I don't think there's been a bad issue. It's never, I think I said this earlier, but I've never finished an issue and went, oh, that's it. I think it sets up the final issue of the arc pretty well. I think it's a little too big for the second main arc in the series. You'll kind of understand when you read through it.
Yeah, I'll have a little more idea once I get through the first trade, and then steal issue 7 through 12.
You know, you can see Shockwave's a big part of it, so he's been pretty intimidating. He's definitely a much more like psychopathic, or he's more crazier. There's a scene where he's like carrying some bottle out away and these kind of scream out into the distance.
Okay. No, I enjoyed the first issue, and
Mm.
I thought it was very engaging, and definitely has piqued my interest in the rest of the series. So it'll be nice to
Um,
check them out.
I'm a little worried for what happens when the GI Joe ongoing launches, because it could mean the pacing of it could suffer if they're trying to tie it in with that series. I'm still thinking they're going to do a crossover between the two of them with the Return of Megatron, probably the Rise of Cobra.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And you know, the Energon universe has been
Mhm.
picking up a lot of chatter recently, which is
Yeah.
good. I like that. It's nice to see the expansion. And
Mhm.
again, that's a topic that we're gonna
Yeah.
kind of get onto a little bit tonight.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great issue. It's characters shine through. It's you kind of understand where everybody's coming from. It's not a because Alita's in it and she kind of talks to Optimus about, hey, you just kind of came to Earth and left everybody else on Cybertron.
Right.
So while you've been here, we've been fighting a war. So you can't really.
Can't really complain about
Uh-huh.
anything. No, I get that. All right. Well, my anticipated for this week was Babs. I looked at it on the FOC, wasn't going to do it. Looked again a little bit later in the week, still was kind of on the edge. When it came time to send in my FOC for the week, I decided I was going to do it. I went with the Amanda Connor cover, which is not this cover here. This book is it's absolutely hilarious. It was exactly what I was expecting. There's nothing serious in it. It makes fun of every kind of fantasy movie show that has ever been. So I mean, there were a couple of times I was reading it, and I just started laughing. It's that kind of just grabs you humor. I'm looking forward to issue two. I think Garth Ennis nailed it with this one. It is very wordy,
Mhm.
but it's hilarious. It's like a Mel Brooks film put into a comic book. All right, and there was one that I wanted to talk about
Mhm.
that when we went to the hall Saturday,
Yeah.
I'd picked up a few things. I was just kind of looking around, and I caught this book out of the corner of my eye called Hell Mask. And what really caught me on it is that at the very top of it, it has the creative team,
Mhm.
which is Danzig, Bisley, and Yaki. And the one that really kind of grabbed me was Danzig.
Mhm.
And so I opened it up in the shop because I wanted to see if it was in fact Glenn Danzig, and it is Glenn Danzig. So I picked it up. I haven't read it yet. I've just kind of thumbed through it. The artwork looks really good. So I'm interested in getting into it and getting into the story itself. I just kind of wanted to touch on that one
Mhm.
because there's so much being pushed with the digital comics.
Mhm.
You don't get that experience like you do when you go into a shop.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we'll be quick. We'll just kind of grab our pull and leave.
Mhm.
At least once a month, usually two times a month. We like to just go in and look around, and it's because you find stuff like this. So if you're just ordering online or you're just doing the digital
Mhm.
comics, I think you're missing out on a whole aspect
Yeah.
of the community
Mhm.
of comic books. And so you really need to find a local shop that you enjoy and go into it. We've been going to the hall for
If
7 years now.
if there is a shop, because I think countries in I think South America and Asia are much harder to come across.
Well, I'm more referencing the
Mhm.
US.
I was just
Okay.
I just thought I'd point.
No, I know, and the reason why things like this I will reference the U.S. only with the U.S. in mind is because copyright laws around the
Mhm.
world are very different. so things are handled differently and
Yeah.
done differently. And so, yes, if you are into comic books, but you're usually, I'm just going to read it digitally. You're missing out
Mhm.
on an aspect of the community of comic book readers that you really should be in and enjoying.
Mhm.
So that was the point to bringing that up. I, because that was one of those. I mean, sometimes we found books that we just
Mhm.
were like, "Oh, this cover's kind of cool. Let me grab that."
Yeah.
This is the first one that I've looked at, and I was like, "Oh man, is that really this person?" Like, I knew he was into comic books. I'm a big fan of the Misfits, Samhain, and Danzig. So this was a definite cool find for me.
Mhm.
I'm hoping I'm not going to be let down when I sit down and read it, but it's still a cool find,
Mhm.
uh, even if the story is not good or the artwork is doesn't hold up within the story.
Does this have more issues solicited for it, or is it just a one
I
shot?
don't know. This one just came out,
Yeah,
so
but when you
I don't know anything about this
oh,
book
okay.
other than Glenn Danzig wrote the
Mhm.
story for it. Okay, so then we wanted to talk about kind of getting a little further into this train of thought is that to this point in the year,
Mhm.
because we are almost well, we're just over halfway done with August,
Yeah.
and so to this point,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to be one that was released this year, but just something you've read this year. What's been the surprise series for you?
It's been a couple. So kind of bit of context. I picked up the all the works of a guy named Chris Condon, I think his name is, and he was taking over Green Arrow, and that was announced back when DC announced All In. He was talking about, or he was kind of like promoting his other work, which was like Texas Blood in a book also called The Enfield Gang Massacre.
Oh, right.
I was like, oh, I'll pick those up and just kind of see what it'd be like. I think last week or a week before is when I actually read through all of them, and I just love the series.
Yeah,
They're
it was last week.
okay. I haven't fully read. I've read the first two issues of Enfield, for the trade.
Oh, right.
But the three trades read of that Texas Blood is just fantastic. It's just like murder mystery, crime thriller. Each one's a different decade and sort of a different genre. The pacing is a little weird, and I think some characters, like the facial hair characters, confuse me because I thought I figured out the twist
Right.
when like what I thought was a flashback being shown, and then a character showed up that proved no, this is set in the present. I was like, oh, so it's just two characters that look really similar.
Well, good. It's it's one of the things that's just
Mhm.
kind of cool to find
Yeah,
a series that
if you
draws
read
you in.
through it, you can kind of tell the writer is getting more comfortable with what he's doing.
Which is usual
Mhm.
for anything within writing is when somebody's new to it,
Mhm.
they they're not quite as versed, they're not
Mhm.
quite as comfortable. They tend to overthink things a lot.
Mhm.
So,
Because the first volume, there's like this narration that's happening through it. It doesn't really apply to the book or to the character. Second volume is, I think, is my favorite, just because the way the story progresses. It's the one that feels like a serial TV show. That makes sense.
okay,
Like any like crime show is the one that's probably feels the most like it.
oh, right,
And the third volume's like slasher mystery thing.
okay. Well, that's kind of cool that it's
Mhm.
each volume is something a little different.
Yeah,
So you don't they're not trying to drag out
yeah.
one character base, one storyline.
Because it's like the same set of three-ish characters,
Hmm.
but every decade is different.
Okay. No, it's pretty cool. Kind of like the way that it sounds. The way you
Mhm.
present it it makes it very interesting.
Mhm.
The one for me is recent because I just picked it up this weekend. I had been hearing a lot about it. I had looked some stuff up. on it. I looked at the preview for the current issue, and decided that I was gonna try to pick up some parts to it. I picked up the volume one trade and the current issue, issue number 5, because I
Mhm.
wanted to see if there was a difference. I I haven't read through the trade yet.
Mhm.
I'm just a little bit into it and absolutely love it.
Mhm.
It's the first one. It's the first one in a while
Mhm.
since I read, Batman Who Laughed,
Mhm.
which kind of drew me in immediately. And I was completely all over anything metal at that point. But the series is from Ghost Machine,
Mhm.
which is Geiger,
Mhm.
and just absolutely in love with the series. Just from the first few pages into it,
Mhm.
there's already a connection with the main character. The story flows beautifully. I didn't want to stop reading it,
Mhm.
but I knew we had to get through a lot of the other issues that I
Yeah.
pulled. I knew we had some stuff going on this weekend that had to be
Mhm.
done, so I forced myself to put it to the side
Mhm.
so other things could get done. But I'm definitely going to go back to it. Actually, probably tonight. Um, and get I'll get through it pretty quick. But
Yeah.
that's been the surprise for me,
Mhm.
is just how quickly it pulled me in. Like I said, I saw the preview, so I already
Mhm.
kind of knew it was a story I would be interested in. It just
Mhm.
pulled me in a lot quicker
Yeah.
than I thought it was going to.
Um, if I had to say like a surprise that came out this year, it'd probably be the Jango Fett miniseries that came out a little bit ago.
Okay.
I had read or I picked up the first two issues. And I was just like, this is. It just kind of made me interested to go back into Star Wars comics. I hadn't been reading them for a while. It's just a fun mini.
Okay.
So it's not anything like a masterpiece, but it's just a fun miniseries. That's
But and that is the point to comics,
mhm.
the fun.
I think it's because Django's kind of a charming character in the mini. This is before he has Boba. This is before Attack the Clones.
Okay.
So if you think maybe Django's a little bit boring as a character in episode two, he kind of doesn't have a lot of personality. They kind of changed that with the mini.
Okay. Kind of let him be a little bit more of who he was before he had responsibilities.
Yeah.
Okay. That definitely makes sense. Now, in case in point,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so your surprise
Mm-hmm.
kind of release this year came from Marvel, came from one of the big two. The other things that we had been talking about as far as our surprise series, and well, like the two that I had talked about, Hell Mask and Babs,
Mm-hmm.
the one you had been anticipating
Mm-hmm.
from this week, which was Transformers, those are all from indies.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to discuss. I put a blog out this week.
Mm-hmm.
I put a post out about the problem with the big two,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you can kind of continue that thought out and say, and the rise of the indies.
Yeah.
So we want Marvel and DC to succeed.
Yeah.
Is I think anybody in comics wants Marvel and DC to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indies are nice. I really enjoy what is available through indies because
Mm-hmm.
it's stuff you're not going to get from the big two.
Yeah.
They take a lot of chances, or they throw your odd characters out there. It's where T came out of.
Mm-hmm.
It's where Usagi came out of. Spawn,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was created kind of while while McFarlane was at Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
it was never a Marvel book. He
Yeah.
never presented it to Marvel because he knew they were going to turn it down.
Yeah.
So he waited on it, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's other characters that have been released on indies that were in that same kind of boat.
Do you wonder if Geiger was meant to be some kind of DC book?
I really could see Geiger as a DC book. One of the things I really like about indies
Mm-hmm.
is that they don't have the constraints
Yeah.
of a Marvel or a DC.
I mean, Transformers is probably the only thing that's
Well,
maybe
no,
even
no,
TMNT
I'm not
is.
even. I'm not even talking about a continuity thing,
Well, I mean
right?
more just like the way Hasbro protects its brand identity to Transformers.
Yeah,
They have very strict
no, and I'm
regulations. It's like,
sure they have some guidelines,
mm-hmm,
right? But for the most part, indies can present their characters in
mm-hmm,
more fantastical ways.
mm-hmm,
They can present their characters in more mature
yeah,
manners. Whereas DC and Marvel have some constraints on them. Yes, you have the black label.
mm-hmm,
Now you have the red band from Marvel.
which
You
is
used to have Vertigo. You've had these lines
mm-hmm,
where they've kind of gone away from these tight constraints of what is acceptable to release.
mm-hmm. I think like what they think is acceptable to release, and spread something with Marvel
Hmm.
is their kind of marketing is like our baseline age is 13,
No, and that
but you probably also want it to be appropriate for people under.
well, and that's why I kind of approve of the red band,
Mm-hmm,
right? It's why I like the black label
mm-hmm,
for DC. I think if you're looking at under 13,
mm-hmm,
I don't think you can really look at that for a majority of Marvel and DC books. I think there's topics, there's
mm-hmm,
definitely images that are in these books that would not be appropriate for
mm-hmm.
under 13. But if you're looking for 13, I think the main line would be okay.
Yeah.
There's some other things that the writers are doing now that, like, every once in a while, having a conversation where you put the characters in
Mm-hmm,
and as opposed to four-letter words.
mm-hmm,
Every once in a while, it's okay, but there's issues that are out now that it's like every single word bubble has that.
mm-hmm,
It's like, dude, that's enough. Like your conversation is not interesting to me anymore because I don't want that,
mm-hmm,
in this format,
mm-hmm.
right? When I was talking about it earlier, Babs is definitely not for kids, right? There's nothing edited in there at all,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it fits with that
Yeah.
material. So I think you have to look into what your material is, into how you're writing.
Mm-hmm,
So my big thing with the big two, and going back to the topic, the problem with the big two is that when you come into comics,
mm-hmm,
of course, my story, I was in comics as a kid, got
mm-hmm,
out of comics, which most people do. Then,
mm-hmm,
when you and Britain were young,
mm-hmm,
um, I was able to share a lot of
mm-hmm.
that stuff with y'all. And that kind of brought me back
Yeah.
into the world of comics and being able to enjoy it and getting to see how it's changed, which has been pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
For better or for worse.
right, for better or for worse. But the thing with when I look at Marvel and DC, especially Marvel, like I think
Mm-hmm,
DC they have some big characters, but they don't have as many,
mm-hmm,
right? Now, I say nowadays,
mm-hmm.
uh, people know who the Flash is,
Yeah.
right? He was not such a big character back, you know. Everybody's always known who Batman is, but there's more things
Mm-hmm.
around those characters, additional characters.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they're as instantly recognizable. Like you say, Spider-Man, people
Mm-hmm.
know the character, but they know a ton about him,
Yeah.
right? So Marvel really needs to be the one that is bringing people into comics.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring them in and you let them sprout later on, right?
Yeah. DC's doing a better job at actually marketing their stuff.
Well,
Uh,
yes,
at
but
the end of all their trailers, as far as I'm so aware, they'll have like a 3 reading recommendations or whatever.
mhm.
It's usually, I think, going to be the most recent run or storyline, and then like good beginner stories. And
With
then it says read on or go find the local comic book shop or read on DC Universe.
and I like that they're trying to get people in, which is good, which is what the industry needs. The problem is, I think that the creative teams need to, they should strive for this. And part of my view on this actually is Kirby's view, right? Because Kirby wasn't trying to be bigger than the characters, right? He wanted the characters to have human characteristics because they were going to live on past him. And he knew that, and he wanted them set up that way so that the people that came after him could carry them on.
Yeah.
The creative teams should strive. The goal should be I, as a creative team, am second to this character.
Unless
Right?
it's a character you've created.
Well, even if it's a character you've created, I think you should strive to be second to that character because, again, that character is going to live on.
Yeah.
Right? That character is going to be there in 150 years, you hope. You will not. So you should strive to be second to that character. That character should be bigger than any creative team so that when creative teams in the future come in, they can carry that character along. The problem right now with DC and Marvel is that the creative teams see themselves as bigger than the characters. They are more important than the characters. The characters are a vessel to carry whatever story, whatever message they are trying to push, right? And that should not be the case.
Yeah.
In doing that, and you're losing a lot of the big name writers, big name artists. A lot of them are starting to move on to indie publishers.
Because I told you about this a little bit ago, but there's a post I think about sometimes. It was on the DC Discord server, and somebody had asked like, "Oh, how do you know if somebody's writing a character, out of character, if they just don't understand them?" And I think it's like Superman because he's been around for so long. There's certain characteristics and traits that every writer kind of knows.
Right.
So you can kind of tell when a writer doesn't fully understand that.
And they shouldn't be writing that character.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that it's not a difficult concept that the writers should they should care about the characters, right? They should have some kind of investment with the characters they're writing or the characters they're drawing. They should have an investment more than this is a paycheck, right? One of the people I listen to is Aaron Sparrow, and he's a writer. He did Darkwing Duck. He is working on Project Now, Kneel Before Doomface. He's posted art up. The guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy that is drawing it, really good. Really good. I've really liked the artwork. Listening to him talk about the comic industry and how it just grates him because he can see these writers, these artists, these creative teams don't have an affinity for the characters they are working with. And I kind of understand that. Right. And this whole thing we've been kind of discussing back and forth was to say, I should not care who the creative team is. Like, if it is an amazing, above and beyond storyline, then I should look at who the creator is, right? I should buy a Batman book for Batman. I should buy a Superman book for Superman, Wolverine for Wolverine. I should not look at a title and go, I really want to read about this character or this group of characters, but I'm not going to touch it because that's who's writing it, right? I should not do that.
I kind of do that, but there's certain titles it's like it doesn't matter. It would have to be someone I truly despise.
Okay, let me ask you this: if John Ridley gets put on Flash or Spider-Man, are you going anywhere near those titles?
I don't know because I haven't read enough of his work. I've read his Black Panther run, and I thought it was fine.
I have a comic you can read.
um,
I mean, I'm just asking. Like, I know our conversations.
Mhm,
I make comments about Tom King,
mhm,
but I give him credit when it's deserved. When he does things that I think are great, I
mhm.
give him credit for that. But I think a lot of his writing is mediocre because he's on the wrong book. I don't honestly think he as a writer is not talented. I think he's on the wrong book.
I also just feel like the way he paces stuff, because he did an interview a while or not a while back, but a little bit ago, a couple 2 weeks ago, on some kind of comic book podcast where he was asked about his Wonder Woman run. And before Absolute Power was going or started, he
Mhm.
had this big story that was about the sovereign. And it was basically like the King of America, and he had this lasso of lies. So it's like you wrap it around and you basically tell him a lie and he believes it.
Okay.
Instead of telling you the truth, you believe a lie.
Right. And
And my biggest problem with that story and the because it was outlawed and then it was another story is even while reading it back to back to back, the pacing of it was just really weird and slow. And he said it isn't going to wrap up till issue 20.
which is odd to me because I really thought that every single DC book was taking a brand new story arc in October.
I'm sure it is. There's a possibility issue 14, I think it is just a here's a big recap everything that's happened.
No, I don't
Um,
know. We shouldn't be concerned with the creative teams, right? We
mhm,
should not be looking at it and going, who's the writer, who's the artist
mhm,
on these books to determine whether we're going to pick them up or not. It should be, do I want to pick up Batman because I like Batman? Do I
mhm,
want to pick up Wolverine because I like Wolverine? Do I want to pick up Miss Marvel because I like Miss Marvel?
mhm,
It should not be who's writing, who's drawing. And that's where we're headed.
mhm,
And that's for a lot of people. And unfortunately, I'm one of them. That's where we are now. I look at the creative teams now
mhm,
and look at it and go, do I want to spend $5, $6
mhm,
for this book a month? And based on who is creating it and who is writing, who is
yeah,
drawing. We shouldn't be doing that in comics. Like it should be, hey, I really like this character. I'm gonna get on this book, and then a writer comes on there and you really like what he is doing
mhm.
and you pick up who he is.
Or it's hey, there's new Justice League book coming out. You
E-
shouldn't have to.
Exactly. I have been dying for a new Justice League book, and they announced it was coming out, and I was ecstatic. And then they announced Mark Waid was writing it, and I am not picking it up. But we shouldn't have to do that
Yeah.
with it within comics. Like as readers, we always talked about, oh, it's a new Stephen King book, right?
Hmm.
Because it was Stephen King. Because there's no character that carries over
Yeah.
every single book.
Unless it's the Dark Tower.
But that's not all he wrote. That's what I'm saying. Like you focus on the author because you like their work. You get into comics because you like a character. That's how it should be. It should not be, I like this character, but now I have to look at who the creative team is to determine if I'm going to purchase it or not. And now, okay, we've been 2 years without a Justice League book.
Hmm.
I'm going to be without a Justice League book for however long Mark Waid is on that book.
Or how long till they launch a new one?
Until he is off that book, I'm not getting it.
Well, I mean, but they could do a new Justice League where they could be like JLA or just
Right, but
Adjective as
if
Justice
they
League.
turn around and do what they did last time with the
Hmm.
Justice League Dark and things like that, I'm not doing it. I don't want 20 billion, variations of it. I
Hmm.
want the Justice League. I want who should be in the Justice League working together, and I want those books.
Hmm.
That's what I want. But because of the way things are,
Hmm.
I have to look at here's a character I'm interested in.
Hmm.
Who's the creative team?
I also just it's kind of worth wait on Justice League because he wrote Justice League in the 2000s. I think he took off. I think he took over Morrison.
So this may not be the best example because there are other reasons why I will not pick up a book Mark Waid is on. I won't do it.
Let me just finish my thought. But I feel like he had his time to write Justice League. I get why you want to have these like legacy writers, but at the same time, there are 100 new writers that come in every month or so
Oh, right, but
that you could have given them a chance to do something new with Justice League.
Okay, and I think that that's what they need to look at. Is not that it's new writers. I don't care if you take a writer that's had Justice League before, right? I want them to be competent. I want them their sales record, right? If you go and you look at the sales for comic books each month, they break it out by creative teams now. They break it out by writer, and they look at it, and there's writers who have several books that they're writing a month, right? And they're all failing. That should be a complete and easy decision for a company. Hey, look, we gave you 4 titles. All 4 of them are outside the top 200. You no longer work for us. And you give that title to somebody else who can write and is not trying to use the characters for something else. There's a lot of books out there that I feel the creative teams are trying to take a square peg and put it in a round hole. And you cannot do that. You cannot have an idea of a story and force a character to do that story. You have to write the story to fit the character. And that's where they're going wrong. That's where they're off a little bit. Right. And when we're talking creative teams, like I guarantee I'm going to go and remind myself who this person is. The Gotham City Sirens, book 2. Book 1, I enjoyed. I thought it was good. It wasn't fantastic, but I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought the writing was good. I thought the artwork was good. Book 2, the story I thought was good. The artwork, horrible.
It's the same.
It could be the same artist. It probably is the same artist, but the way they drew the characters were not the characters. And it could be that they were just rushing because it is a book that is coming out weekly. So they may have had a deadline that
Matteo Lilly is the artist.
Okay. It's possible that he had more time on book 1 than he did for book 2 and he was rushing, but the characters did not fit the characters. Right? Harley didn't look like Harley. Poison Ivy didn't look like Poison Ivy. That's a problem.
Yeah.
You're writing about or you're drawing a character that is established. You're not creating a character. This is an established character. I understand that there are variations to each character.
I kind of have mixed opinions on that because I feel like DC and Marvel maybe should have like every time a character gets a scene or redesign, people like here's the design that should be followed, but at the same time, artists should be able to do things.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like I understand there's variations of the character. Like there's variations of Harley based on who's drawing her. I do not have a problem with that. When you have that, it's a variation of Harley. I can look at that and go, that is Harley Quinn. When I look at a drawing of Harley and I'm like, who is this? You're not drawing the character. And that's a problem. And like I say, maybe there was shorter time between issue 1 and issue 2 as far as due date, as far as when he was told the project was, right? It is possible he had more time for issue 1 than he did for issue 2. I still don't think the artwork was amazing.
I'm going to flip through because I'm kind of curious.
But it was good. I didn't have an issue with it. I sat down with issue 2. One of my absolute favorite characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at a drawing of her and go, "Who is this?" Like, I know who it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this? All right, so go ahead with your thought.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but when Kirby came over to DC and took over the Jimmy Olsen book at the time,
Mm-hmm.
DC was so afraid he was going to radically redesign, but DC was so afraid that Kirby was going to radically redesign Superman
Mm-hmm.
that they got another artist to redraw every time Kirby drew Superman. I just thought it was interesting.
No, and I think that that's a little crazy because it's Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, they don't have the same concern now for any character. These are the where problems come in,
Mm-hmm.
and then you look at the artists, or sorry, you look at the writers who have been leaving Marvel and DC
Mm-hmm.
and going to work on indie stuff.
Yeah.
And since it seems like, I mean, you have always
Mm-hmm.
been watching creative teams.
Yeah.
You've always known who the writer, who the artist was
Yeah.
of different books. And I would pick up on a few of them. Like I said, when a book was just,
Mm-hmm.
threw me for a loop, I would figure out who the writer, who the artist was.
Mm-hmm.
And I would start looking for things that they released. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
trying to avoid somebody. I was trying to see, okay, what project are they going to do next?
Mm-hmm.
So I could go over and get it. Well, now, because of the way that things are in this current comic book realm,
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at, who do you like to read?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you not enjoy reading?
Mm-hmm.
Are they consistently good? Are they consistently bad? Are they
Mm-hmm.
up and down? And if it's somebody that is consistent for you,
Mm-hmm.
that you really enjoy their work, you start following them to different projects. Well, now funny books are $5,
Mm-hmm.
$6. But you can't maintain as many
Yeah.
as you could 10 years ago.
Yeah, because I had to drop a couple of titles.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so now you're looking at it and you're going, okay, I have to stay at X number
Mm-hmm.
a month for the total number of comics titles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're starting to instead of looking at something and going, man, I really want that book because I
Mm-hmm.
really am intrigued by that story. I'm intrigued by that character. This is where I want to go to. And instead, you're having to look at it and go, who's writing this story? Who's
Mm-hmm.
writing this story? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
who's on what book? And that's determining what books you're
Yeah.
getting. Because if you're sitting there and saying, hey, for each month, I want 20, 25 book limit,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you're looking at, what are the 20 or 25 books I really enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
Who are the writers that I really want to follow? Who are the artists who just blow me away? And these are the books that they're, on there drawing them.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I want to be with. But who's the writer they're with? Because if they're with a bad writer,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter how good the artist is. Chances are you're not picking it up. You're
Yeah.
going to look for a cover for any book that they did and buy that one instead. So that's unfortunately where we are in the world of comics right
Yeah.
now. And what it's led to is these writers and artists are starting to leave Marvel and DC, and they're going to the indies.
Mm-hmm.
They're going and working on different projects in the indies. Well, the customer is following them. They're leaving the stories
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm not interested in reading Batman, Justice League, Wolverine,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not interested in reading them because the writer that is doing the stories doesn't pique my interest. Then
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go where Tinian is. I'm going to go where Jeff Johns is,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to go and follow these guys and pick up their books because I know I'm going to spend $5 or $6 on
Mm-hmm.
this book, but I'm going to love it. And I'm going to be entertained. and I'm going to look forward to the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big two are losing sight of that.
Yeah.
Who you have as a creative team matters.
Mm-hmm.
I had written kind of a, it was a longer than usual, but still relatively short blog about this topic.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to expand on it
Yeah.
here. But I really, I mean, I've always watched, you knew who wrote and who drew like all kinds of books.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I didn't care. And it was nothing against the writer, nothing
Mm-hmm.
against the artist. I felt that the character is what mattered. And that's what I wanted. Like
Mm-hmm.
I looked at who they were when I read the book,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was the character that I came for. And now I'm at a point where I'm looking at who they are because I don't care who the character is,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're a good writer
Mm-hmm.
and you are paired with a good artist and you put out Mary Poppins, I'm probably going to go and buy it because I want to see what your take is on it because you entertained me with everything else to this
Mm-hmm.
point, right? I don't care about that character, but I know it's going to be worth the buy.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be worth the read. And so that's what I'm going to do. And if that means that I have to drop a Batman
Mm-hmm.
or Wolverine, then I'm going to drop them.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunately the state of comics today is that it's not the characters that are driving people
Mm-hmm.
to what their pull lists are. It's the creative teams. And that really needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Moving on from that.
stepping down from the soapbox, just kind of wanted to see what was coming up in this next week, our next visit to the hall, as it were. What is your most anticipated? I guess what would be the honorable mention?
Um. Oh God, that might be tough. I think it's going to be between Wolverine Revenge or Ultimate Spider-Man.
Okay,
Coincidentally, both of them are done by Jonathan Hickman.
and they're both Marvel.
Yeah. See, Marvel does interesting stuff.
No,
I'm
and
excited
they
for it.
do, and I'm not trying to just rip on them and be like, oh, they're the big ones. They've lost their way. It's not that. It's that a lot of times they put the wrong people in the wrong books.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that's going to chase people away, and it's causing people to start looking at the creative teams and follow the ones they like and avoid the ones they don't like. For me, and this was honestly this is a big week for me
Mm-hmm.
because there is a Hellblazer. I love Constantine.
So issue 11?
No,
No.
to issue number 8 is Dead in America.
Okay, my bad. I was.
Usagi is coming out this week. This is
Mm-hmm.
the completion of the Crow series, the Crow run.
Oh, Usagi the Crow?
Yeah, Usagi Yojimbo, the Crow. It's the fifth and final book
Okay.
in that
When you
series.
said the Crow, I thought it was
I know. Yeah,
the 94.
I'm a huge Crow fan. I have just about every single Crow book there is. Yeah,
Super excited for the new
I'm
Phil
not.
Skarsgård.
Oh my God, I'm not super excited for the movie. It never should have been redone. There was nothing wrong with what Brandon Lee did. It never should have been a sequel. It should have been a standalone movie, and that should have been it. And it should have been something that we shared with future generations and said, see, you missed this.
The Rotten Tomato score is going to be fun to look at. I really hope they do because
I,
they did.
and, and, and I'm telling you, we're going to sit down, we're going to watch The Crow,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're going to watch The Crow,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll watch the remake. I'm not going to make you suffer through movie 2, movie 3,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but you're going to watch the original and watch the remake, and then I want to get your opinion on it because you know my opinion on it. I saw
Mm-hmm.
the first trailer that came out and hated it from word go. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch it just because it's The Crow. but I already know it's going to be horrible because
Yeah, I'm kind of curious why they delayed it from by 2 months.
I,
Because apparently early test screenings called it just straight up unwatchable.
yeah, well, it's bad. It's just I mean, the trailer itself, like
Hmm.
when you go back and you watch the trailer for The Crow,
Hmm.
you know, from the 90s, and you watch that and you get pumped to see that movie because it was such a good movie.
Hmm.
And then you watch the trailer for the remake and you're just like, really? I know me. I know I'm going to watch it because it's The Crow,
Hmm.
but I'm really not looking forward to watching this. It looks horrible.
I
So,
really hope, because when the Hellboy remake came out, the 2019 one, Rotten Tomatoes did this video. That's hilarious. Just the tomato score would rise a little bit and then drop down really quickly.
and I didn't think it was a bad movie. I enjoyed watching the
It's
Hellboy. I
enjoyable.
still believe Ron Perlman is the only Hellboy,
We'll have to do, we ever do a Hellboy
even even
podcast
though
episode.
even though he did not sign my photo, the
Mhm.
one and only Hellboy. I was a little unhappy about that.
Oh,
But
we didn't sign it?
no, 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 he signed it. I have the Hellboy picture with Ron
Hmm.
Perlman's signature on it.
Hmm.
Right, his autograph is on that photo.
Hmm.
But I had requested him to put on there the one and only Hellboy because for me he is the one and only Hellboy.
Maybe
Uh,
he's just being humble.
yeah, and he wouldn't do it. So really wish he had. That's my opinion. I'm still going to stick with that opinion. It doesn't make me right, but damn it, I'm going to stay with that opinion. Okay, so out of my pool, and it's a big week. Like I said,
Hmm.
there's a new
We
Hellblazer,
go from Usagi to the Crow to Hellboy.
and we went way around. I hope everybody enjoyed that trip. Um,
It's a full circle. We went from Dark Horse back to Dark Horse.
yes, yes, we did. We sure did. Um, Not in a straight line at all. The Wolverine Revenge comes out. I'm kind of anxious to see that one.
Hmm.
We did do the Red Band. I'm interested in seeing how the Red Band is.
Hmm.
Um, I may have to pick up a copy of the normal, the main line,
Okay.
uh, just to compare it
I'm curious if it'll have the digital copy inside.
of the normal one, the main line.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean we won't know it's polybagged.
Yeah.
So
Because Marvel does the digital edition.
yeah, I don't know if it would be since it is the red band, if it would be the main line or be the red band. Honestly, I'll probably grab the main line
Hmm.
just so we can do a side by side
Okay.
comparison. It'd be the only issue I do it on. I'm not spending that much money every single month.
That's $11 just for those issues.
Yes, exactly. But I'm willing to do it once, just so we
Hmm.
can compare it. We're going down this journey. We might as well go full bore. I
Yep.
mean, but like I said, it's definitely a full week for me. There's a
Hmm.
lot of good stuff on this pool this week.
A lot of
But
fun stuff.
I'm so ready, and this is a DC book, but it's an Elseworlds.
It's a
Uh,
Viking book.
it is a Viking book. It is awesome. I so loved the first issue of this thing, and it's well, the first issue anyway
Hmm.
was 99.9% black and white,
Hmm.
and what they did with the depth they were able to achieve
Hmm.
was part of what made the book so wonderful.
Hmm.
But yeah, Dark Knights of Steel, All Winter #2 is coming
Hmm.
out. I am really anticipating this book.
Hmm.
I hope that it is again in black and white. Um, I think that.
Makes the colors lives easier.
Well, no, I think this is a book that I think should be in black and white. Right?
Is it a-
I I know people that read Usagi that say it should never have been in color. I
Mhm.
love Usagi in color. I think Usagi should have been in color from day one.
Mhm.
Um, this is a book that should be in black and white,
Mhm.
and I hope it remains in black and white. If they color it, I'm not going to be overly disappointed. Just saying, I really enjoyed the black and white aspect of this book on issue number one.
Mhm.
And yes, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know it's a DC, and DC, this is the type of stuff you need to be doing more of. The writer obviously cares about the characters in this book.
I don't think you should be embarrassed or mad if your most anticipated book is DC or Marvel.
No, and I'm,
One of the
and,
big
and
three.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm saying I know we
Mhm.
talked about it,
Mhm.
and this is what's big anticipated for me this week, and just about everything on my poll is DC or Marvel.
Mhm.
Um, I have some from Image, The Walking Dead, Usagi is Dark Horse now, was IDW. We have a couple of Spawn books coming out next week, but I don't shy away from DC and Marvel, and I don't want to put that perspective out there that people think, oh, you're just, anti DC and Marvel. I'm not. I love the DC and Marvel characters. I pull a ton of DC and Marvel books, but it's because I like the characters
Mhm.
and I follow these companies that it irritates me so much to see them floundering.
Yeah.
And I want them to succeed. I want them to put the best creative teams they can possibly put together on these books so that more people enjoy them and we can bring more people into the community. We're not trying to hide the comic community. We want to
Mhm.
grow it. We want it to be bigger. We want comics to be a big deal,
Mhm.
right? We enjoy them. We like to talk about them. We like meeting the artists. We like meeting the writers. We like talking to the writers. We
Mhm.
like talking to the artists. The internet has given us this ability with
Mhm.
social media to talk to these people. We want to talk to them,
Yeah.
right? One of the biggest things we enjoy at events at the hall is
Mhm.
meeting the local artist
Yeah.
or meeting the artist that has come in
Mhm.
for whatever book, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and getting a chance to meet them and talk to them. To me, that's one of the biggest things about being in this community is that you get to meet the creators, you get to
Mhm.
talk to the creators, and you can continue conversations with them on social media.
Mhm.
You can follow along with them on all kinds of stuff. We want the community to be bigger. Like I want I want people to be, raving about Jorge Corona,
Mhm.
raving about Morgan Beam. And, you know, when we reach out to them with a
Mhm.
question or something, that it's not that they're ignoring us, but it
Mhm.
takes them a month to get back to us because they're
Mhm.
so busy. Right?
Mhm.
Like that's what I that's what I want. I want I want these creative teams to be treated in the same manner that a rock star is treated, the
Mhm.
same manner that a big time actor is treated,
Mhm.
right? So I'm not trying to dump on DC and Marvel. I'm
Mhm.
trying to say this is my opinion of what I see. This is what I see as the result of it. And I don't like it not because you're the big two and I want to prop up these
Mhm.
unknown or little known publishers.
Mhm.
It's because I want you to stay here
Mhm.
and these publishers to come up to here and our community to be much bigger. But if they go the route they're going
Mhm.
and what it seems like, and this is again my opinion,
Mhm.
what it seems like, they don't care who's on the book.
Mhm.
They want somebody who profit line,
Mhm.
right? I sell a book for 5, I pay you 2 to write. You know?
I think sometimes they just put writers on there. I think
And
Tom.
that's what I'm saying. Like, if it is a bottom line thing,
Mhm.
then you need to adjust the number of books.
I think Tom King is only getting the amount of books he has because they consistently get Eisner Awards.
Okay.
So if he doesn't say, and they consistently sell well because it's an Eisner Award winning writer. So if you're not familiar with the name Tom King,
Right. You look at it
well,
and go, oh, he won an award. He must be good.
yeah.
It, but they need to look at it and look at what quality of product they're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
And if that quality of product is not what they expect it to be,
Mm-hmm.
like they should care about what they're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I get it. I understand business.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to care the way we care,
Mm-hmm.
right? They don't care the way the fans care.
They care about the money that.
They care about the numbers, right? How many of this title did we sell this month?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they care about. And I get that, right? The object of business is to make money for your shareholders. The way you make money for your shareholders is by being more profitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of a misnomer, right? You can still make money for your shareholders while losing money. Odd thing in business. But you earn more for your shareholders when you show that you're a stronger company. When you put out 5 movies in a row that fail,
Mm-hmm.
shareholders start to worry. If you have a comic division
Mm-hmm.
and your sales start to plummet,
Mm-hmm.
that should be a warning bell. Because, and the company should care, especially Marvel and DC, right? If you're not selling Batman books at the
Mm-hmm.
rate you were selling them before, how successful do you expect that next Batman movie to be? Right? I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a tell on what's the comic industry is kind of like the canary in the coal mine,
Yeah.
right? Like your fan base is rabid about these characters,
Mm-hmm.
but if they start falling off the comic, they're not going to care about the movie. People who don't care about the comic itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you put a product out in the movie side
Mm-hmm.
that reflects your comic side, which you're trying to use the movies to increase your reader base on your
Mm-hmm.
comic side. If it reflects that comic, it's not going to be very good, and your movie audience is going to go away,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a dumping on DC and Marvel. It's a this is what I'm seeing from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to do better. That's all. I pull a bunch from DC and a bunch from Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not always happy with what I get,
Mm-hmm.
but it's what I purchase,
Mm-hmm.
right? These are the characters that I want to read about and I want to enjoy and I want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to follow. So, yes, I want DC and Marvel to succeed because they want more books about these characters
Mm-hmm.
that I can read and follow. But what I'm worried about is that more and more people are going to go away from DC and away from Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
go to these indie books, but it's not going to be enough to sustain the comic industry we have. And we need a stronger industry
Mm-hmm.
to have the indies and have the indies do well. To have that, you have to have your big names
Mm-hmm.
do well. So DC and Marvel need to do well for the Image, the Dark Horse, the
Mm-hmm.
IDW, the Ahoy comics to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So no, everybody should want DC and Marvel to do well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not cutting on them because they're the big two.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting on them because from my perception,
Yeah.
the quality of product is not what it should be. It's not what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to do better. Now, granted, my 2 cents and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. That's what we're doing here is to put in our 2 cents. So yes, I pull a lot of DC and a lot of Marvel. I'm not ashamed of that. Right? I love these characters. I was just saying it was kind of funny that we had that topic this week, that I wrote that post on that topic this week. And my anticipated book for this week is a DC book. And, I'm not ashamed of that. I loved issue 1. I'm looking forward to issue 2. I'm very excited about issue 2 coming out. I think this is great. I want to feel that way about mainline books from DC. I want to feel that way about mainline books from Marvel. I don't want to look at Elseworlds and go, man, DC versus Vampires was a really good comic. It's Elseworlds, right? Well, what happens if I really enjoy those and I turn around and Batman's a letdown? I'm going to drop Batman and only pick up Elseworlds, right? Because I'm paying for what I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
And that's not a cut on the company. That's entertainment. It's the way the entertainment industry works. So I want them to put the people who love the characters on the book for that character. If they don't love that character, don't put them on the book, right? If they love the character but they don't want to be held by the continuity, don't put them on that book. Give them an Elseworlds title, right? Let them write an Elseworlds of whatever character it is that they're passionate about, but they don't want to be held by the continuity. They're just completely out of continuity. You give a character the name of whatever character it is you love, you draw them however you want to draw them because it's not in continuity, and you throw them into whatever story you want, and it works, and it's fun. Don't put a writer on a character they don't like. They should love this character. They should be protective of this character, and the character should be bigger than they are.
Okay.
I know we harp on that topic a lot, but I'm passionate about it, and I think you are too.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we view the same topic just from 2 different angles. But yeah, I wasn't embarrassed by that. I just kind of pointing out the irony of it. They should be strong. They should carry the industry. So we'll step off the soapbox there. I know this was one that was really on DC and Marvel. I think it's something that as a community we need to kind of look at it and debate it and discuss it. I mean, granted, they're big corporations.
Yeah.
What we say is not going to go very far with them. I think we have to acknowledge that. Again, that's not a cut on them, right? One voice is very quiet when you're yelling at a giant. But I really want them to think about the characters that they have. Their IPs for the corporation. For us as fans, they're more than that. If we didn't care about the character, if it wasn't something that's important to us, we wouldn't put the money down that we put down for the characters.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the corporations kind of owe to the character. I'm not saying they owe it to us. I'm not saying they owe it to the customers or the fan base or anything like that. The corporation owes that to the characters. They are entrusted with these characters that have been in existence for a long time. They should want the best product out there. On that note, we will step off the soapbox in this episode. I would love to hear what anybody out there has to say on this topic, and I hope you'll join us next time as we journey to Ragnarok.